Hey, it's Braden, and I'm joined by Logan. We are back. We have returned from the dead. This is
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me you built a time machine? My mom always said life was like a box of chocolate. Health, sleep, murder.
Absolutely.
Gobsmack.
I don't want a friend.
how are you this year, Logan?
This year. Well, if you upload this in 2021, I'm hoping that an alien invasion hasn't happened yet, and things are going good. Uh, as for 2020, do I even have to say it? Uh,
Yes, you do. No, I'm kidding. Um, I don't need you to give our listeners PTSD. But yeah, I'm glad you're alive. I was worried about you. This whole time, this whole hiatus, this 3-4 week hiatus that we've since we've had our last episode, Logan went missing, and so
yeah,
we
I,
had
I
to
went,
go
I
find
went,
him.
I went, I went on a amazing trip around the world.
Wow,
Found myself, and I'm kidding. No.
you found yourself. I see. You were lost, and now you're found. So yeah, we have a very difficult episode today. What a wham banger to start off our return. It's a big one. I know people have been literally sitting on the edge of their seats waiting for this episode, not doing anything else.
For 3
And
weeks, just
exactly.
at the end of their seats. Their butts are so uncomfortable at this point.
Exactly. Um so yeah, I mean, any news, anything else? So me and Logan did guest appear last weekend on a show, Cinemillennials, I believe it's pronounced or it's called. Very cool. That episode's not going to come out till probably March. Um, he's more. A lot of podcasts are more organized than we are. They record ahead of time and release them periodically on the same day. We just wing it every time. But that was fun, right, Logan? That was interesting.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was definitely very interesting. It wasn't so much on what the movie was about, more about its impact. Its historical impact, and just overall, it was a little bit different take from what we generally get into.
Yep, yep. So go check out that podcast in the meantime, even though our episode hasn't won't come out for a little bit. It's still a great podcast. He goes over classic movies, very old, the older stuff, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't know, some 60s, yeah. So, just go check it out, especially if you're a big fan of the that era. It's very interesting. So, without further ado, is that how you say it? I don't know.
Yeah,
Without
no, yeah, that's you got it right. But there's so
without
much to do right now. I mean,
without further ado, we shall go into the episode. And this one is gonna be interesting. We don't plan we do a little bit of planning, but we don't really plan exactly, like an outline how this is gonna go. So I'm just as curious and interested as the rest of the listeners on how this will go. But we're talking about Dominique Dunne. Okay, Dominique Dunne, a young actress. Really, she's known for, most famously, her role in the 1982 horror classic, Steven Spielberg classic, Poltergeist. Okay, now um, we're not going to go into that movie. We're going to mostly talk about her. It's a historical document. it's it's historically, it's one of the movies that really Steven Spielberg is behind a lot of things. He wrote this movie, and it's technically it's credited to go to Toby Hooper, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff where they're saying that really Steven Spielberg should be credited as the director because he kind of took over. He made it his own movie, um, and everything had to go through him. So it wasn't Toby Hooper's movie. It wasn't his baby. And yeah, and also this one along with the second Indiana Jones movie uh, were behind the creation of the PG-13 rating, because originally this movie was labeled by the MPAA as rated R, and they didn't like that. Spielberg didn't like that. He fought for the PG rating. This was before PG-13, and they ended up getting it. But I don't know, especially for that time. Think it's definitely a little too dark to be PG. I haven't seen it, but it's a you kind of just can tell it's a different kind of PG.
Yeah, 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 and there's definitely, I think it has been a long time coming, and that movie, and like you said, the second Indiana Jones really brought to the forefront that there needs to be something in between because going that jump from PG to you know rated R is a
Mhm.
really big jump. You're talking about um, you know, no curse words and only a little bit of violence to flat out cursing and blood splattering everywhere. And there's movies that fall in that gray line in the middle, and there needs to be something. And I think I'm glad for the PG-13 rating, just because you tend to realize, okay, I shouldn't bring my 3-year-old or 5-year-old to come and watch this movie. It might get
Right.
scared, but it could have darker themes, and you could appreciate it a lot more. Um,
Right, right. Um, Now, there's a conspiracy with this movie that goes along with the rich, dark, or deep history. This being a supernatural, demonic horror film, um, there's a lot of there's this conspiracy that anyone involved with this movie, or a lot of people that are involved with this movie, bad things happen to them. Not and Dominique Dunne just adding to that. And not only that, but the little girl in the movie, Heather O'Rourke, she died also um, from a sickness, from a disease at the age of 12. So there's a lot going on with this movie, a lot of history. We're just gonna cover a small piece of that, and that's the history of Dominique Dunne. And Logan's gonna kind of start us off with kind of the beginning.
Yeah, and she honestly came from really a really good family as far as Hollywood, as far as the creative types. She grew up in California, in Santa Monica, the daughter of Ellen Beatrice Griffin Dunn, excuse me, and Dominic Dunn. And he was a producer, an actor, and even a writer. So already that's quite the portfolio, for her, because that's a foot in a lot of doors, so to speak. And then even beyond that, her brother Griffin Dunn was also an actor. So there was a lot of ways for her to kind of go and do whatever she wanted. Uh,
And I've seen, and I know who Griffin Dunn is because I know him as the teacher from My Girl that Veda has a crush on. I grew up with that movie My Girl, and we probably will cover that one eventually. But he's in that movie. He's one of the bigger side characters, and him and Dominique look alike. Like he looks like the male version of her. They look very similar. So yeah.
that's growing up in a family like that, though, too. You tend to have that kind of, you're already in that scene basically, so you're kind of grown up to expect, people expect you to follow suit. Um, but her parents actually got a divorce, and after that divorce, she moved to New York and then to Beverly Hills. And once she graduated from high school, she went to the University of Colorado to study acting. Um, and so, yeah, she followed suit. Obviously, we're talking about her, so she's gonna be in a movie. But it's just interesting for me too that a lot of people like that tend to follow suit. But um, anyways, she ended up leaving after 1 year, just 1 year, to chase her career. Um, and 3 weeks after arriving in Hollywood, she got her first gig. Um, so she actually ended up being uh, Donna Freeling, the eldest daughter in the movie Poltergeist. Um, and she was very well known, soon to be well known in the Hollywood social scene. She was liked by all, as a lot of people seem to feel.
Hmm.
Um, and that's when she was at a party. She actually met John Thomas Sweetie, and we won't get into that. I'll let you get into that more. But um, she had been in a lot of different shows and movies. Even after that, that was her biggest one. Um, but uh, she was also in the final season premiere episodes of Chips, and even the 1982 television film The Shadow Riders, starring Tom Selleck and Sam Elliott. Which that honestly, I didn't even know before doing the research for this that that was a television film. I'm a little bit upset about that, but because this is a great movie. But anyways,
Yeah.
um, but she was actually also cast as Robin Maxwell in the miniseries V. But sadly, she had passed during filming, and her role was recast to Blair Tefkin. But she was also appeared in a TV show called Hill Street Blues in the episode Requiem for a Hairbag, um, which aired on November 18th, 1982, 2 weeks after she had passed. And she played a teenage mother who was a victim of parental abuse. Um, and we'll get into that more, but the episode was actually dedicated to her in memoriam in the opening credits. So, yeah, that's a little short history of where she came from. Um, she had actually studied too in Milton Cat. I don't know. I'm not going to even try to pronounce that. It was a workshop, and basically they did stage productions such as West Side Story, The Mousetrap, and My Three Angels. So she had a lot of experience, and she was going to go somewhere. She was very well liked.
Yeah. Of course, she was loved by everyone, especially her parents. Her dad just loved her to death. And if you see an interview of him, you can just tell that he really, really loved her and he cared about her a lot, as most fathers do with their daughters and their children, right? Um, but I mean, they had a really good relationship, and they he had connections. He was a movie producer, and so his two children, Griffin and Dominique, were able to use that and be able to get roles in the industry, which is really nice. Um, Now we're going to talk about John Sweeney, or how they met. I mean, they met at a party in 1981. Okay, she was 21 years old. John, 7 years her senior. Okay, um, they hit it off rather quickly, almost immediately, really. Now Sweeney, who's more of like an athletic built guy, um, he's a pretty big guy, strong guy. Grew up in Pennsylvania, in a Pennsylvania coal town, and this is key. He was the son of an alcoholic and he frequently watched his father beat his mother, which is it's a theme, and we've heard this tale before, right? Um, you know, that's where the saying, in my eyes, that's where the saying "the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree" comes from. Um, Now, he was not an actor. Okay, John Sweeney was not an actor. He was really an aspiring chef. He was a chef assistant to Wolfgang Puck. Who Wolfgang Puck is This is a really famous chef. He has lots of restaurants. He has one at Disney World, um, among others. And this restaurant that they worked at was a very glamorous, fancy restaurant called the Ma Moisson. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but really popular. They had a lot of celebrities go and eat there. Um, Now, they both had a lot of things in common, right? They both loved the continent of Europe. They really loved animals. In fact, Dominique was an animal rescuer, and of course, they both love cooking. They both really they hit it off. They had a lot of similarities. Now, Sweeney, he was a little desperate to fit into that elegance of Hollywood, right? Because he saw it constantly. right? He worked at a fancy restaurant. He saw that elegance, the celebrities, that lifestyle. Okay, now they moved rather quickly, Logan. In fact, they moved into a rented house together within weeks of meeting each other. Okay,
Yikes.
I mean
Honestly.
that's rather quick, and I do always stress the importance of getting to know someone really well before you make start making those commitments. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
um, what should have been really an exciting and romantic time for them, really, um, wasn't. Okay, now he rather quickly began displaying controlling and jealous behavior. Okay. So they would get into fights, right? Towards the beginning, when they would start getting into fights, Dominique would leave and she'd go and stay with her mother.
Mm.
Okay. Now, this is always complicated and tough to understand and make out a lot of the times. At the same time, people who have gone through this can explain it better than I could, okay? But after a few days apart, she would always end up returning. They'd fight, she'd be gone day or two, maybe a few more, and then she'd go back, right? Now, with just like with, and we talked about Judith Barcy and how the abuse kind of gradually got worse. This is no different. Okay. In fact, on August 27th, 1982, in a very specific argument, Sweeney actually grabbed her hair and yanked her so hard he got clumps of hair. He tore out clumps of hair. So she runs to her mother's house. Um, and I guess it's close by. I'm not sure. It seems like it if she's able to run there. I guess her mom lives close by. But she ended up going there, and he starts banging on the doors and windows, demanding to be let in. Okay. Now her mom threatened to call the police. Um,
And real quick, let me stop you right there. I would have been beyond threatening to call the police. I would have called the
yeah,
police and been like, "Let him stay out there. The police are gonna come and get this guy." Because that right there, and the '80s were a different time too. And for people who are abused, it's I can't understand, but I could appreciate that they like somebody and they don't want them to get in trouble. They want them to change and be a better person, but they don't want them to get in trouble. But at that point, that's more than acceptable. If you, I would like talking to my family. I have uncles and aunts who've whacked each other by accident or even on purpose, and then it didn't turn into anything, right? I've also had the reverse of that, where it did turn into abuse, but just for the argument's sake, this would have been far beyond done on
yeah,
purpose. Like this was specifically to be abusive, but
hmm
continue.
yeah. I mean, that's when it started getting bad. Okay, and it gets worse. All right. Not even a month later, maybe not even a month later. Another argument happened September 26th, and he ends up grabbing her by the throat, throws her on the floor, and begins strangling her. I don't understand really how that's a reaction to an argument. Even if I had anger issues, I don't understand how that's a reasonable reaction. Is starting to choke someone just because that'll get you in hot water real quick. You know what I mean? Like you could easily end someone's life. I mean, throats are very easy to manipulate, and that one is just like he has zero self control or what do you call it? Awareness, really.
Yeah. That's something that somebody does to somebody if they hate them, not if they love them. Like you would. I'm there with you. I don't get how that would be reasonable. I'm angry with you, so I'm gonna choke you. I mean,
Yeah,
just even the fear of losing the person you care about would be enough for me.
right. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like not even just losing them. If you're going to be selfish, what about the fear of what could happen to you? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
you've worked so hard. You have a career. You work in a nice restaurant. You know, he had a good career, right? I mean, you throw that away easily. Um, so weirdly enough, there was actually a friend staying with them during this argument, which is just a whole nother like. It's weird because like my parents would always put on their best behavior if someone was staying at our house. You know what I mean?
Amen. Like my mom, you get the mom look if you're acting up, whenever
Right.
people are over. So yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of weird that so soon he would do this in front of somebody. Or not in front of them, but with someone there in the room over. So the friend hears the assault and runs into the room, and obviously he stops, and Dominique tells her friend that he just tried to kill her, and he denied it and suggests that she come back to bed. So he's acting like everything's okay and he's the good guy, kind of. You know those people, right? It's kind of like when I don't know if you experience this, Logan, but when you get into a fight with your sibling and you make them cry, and
yes, I know where you're going with this. Hit me,
and your
hit me.
parents are there,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yep.
and it's like, oh crap, like you don't want to get in trouble, so you try and cover it up. You try to calm them down, and if your parent comes and see them crying, you try to like make it seem like it wasn't such a big deal. You try to downplay it is what I'm coming to. So that's what he was doing. He was trying to downplay the whole incident. She pretended like, okay, I'll come back to bed, because he's like, just come back to bed, come on, like, it's fine, everything's okay. He's kind of diffuse everything because there was somebody there. And she ends up sneaking out of the bathroom window because of what just happened, right? And he hears the car engine start up, and he just bolts out there. He throws himself on the hood of the car, and she starts to move, like he jumps on while she's trying to drive away, and she has to stop. She doesn't want to hurt him. And so when she stops, he gets off, right? Because he thinks, he this is where he can try and talk to her. And then she ends up escaping to her mother's. Um, and then she has to move around to her friends' homes. And she ends up calling Sweeney, and ends the relationship, which is good. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, finally someone's ending the relationship, right?
Yeah.
Um, which I understand it's not always easy. People are in different situations, but here she's dating him. They're not married. They don't have kids. Um, she has her own career. She's an actress, right? So she can cut him loose, and that's what she did, right? So he moved out. He moved out of the house they were renting, actually, and because that was I don't know what the arrangement was there. She was probably making more money as an actress, so she probably paid the bills. I don't know, but she changes the locks, moves into the house, and ends up changing the locks so he doesn't get in. Smart move, right? Another smart move by her. And her career actually takes off after this. This is when she starts getting the TV roles and Poltergeist. Okay. Um, Now I'm going to talk about this is Hill Street Blues. Okay. Now, this is before she broke it off. Okay. This is when she was still dating him. She got a guest role on the show Hill Street Blues, where she plays a teen girl that has been abused by her mother. Okay. The day before, Dominic arrives to shoot her scenes, beat her up so bad that she had bruises all over her face. And you can see it if you guys Google or YouTube. You can watch the clip of the episode, or you can see the picture of her on set, or on the during the episode. She shows up on set with a bruised face, and the makeup department was able to take a break that day because they didn't really need to put much makeup on her. They decided to use the bruises that she got, and that was that was good enough for them.
Like, really? I mean, what? Jeez, what director? Well, maybe okay. I won't put the director in this. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say she showed up and she walked straight into the makeup department's room. Let's just say, right? and then walked out to do her part. What department artist sits in front of somebody and goes, "Wow, you have bruises all over your face. That's perfect for this." You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you be like, "Whoa, what's going on? This is not okay." That's so far from okay. Like, jeez, like what kind of person would be able to have a good conscience?
And we're not even talking about them interfering into her personal life. Okay. It's one thing to try and go and do something about it or stop them or confront them. We're not even talking about that, which I think any decent human being, if they see a situation like that, should act on it, right? But we're just like, give her a break. Or, I mean, I understand she probably needs the money and she needs it. So I don't think she would have objected to it. Um, but it's like figure something else out. I don't know. Just
Well, just out of respect, I would have covered it up and then put on fake bruises anyways. You know what I mean? Just out of respect, just for
yeah, yeah, I can see that. But obviously, this is more about money and saving money on makeup and giving the makeup department a break. I don't think that's more important than the
no,
dignity of her.
no, because just for me, I'm obviously not creative enough to be able to be part of a makeup department. Um, I'm doing a podcast with Braden, so but um, no, but I just if I saw something like that, I'd be like, all right, look, I'm gonna go talk to somebody real quick. I go talk to the director, be like, look, this is the situation. I'm gonna do this, but this probably needs to be, somebody needs to know about this. Like, there needs to be an investigation. Something has to be done. That's not okay. That's just too far. I've obviously talked to her about it because you don't want to interfere with somebody's personal life, but just like it's like as if everybody, even her own mother, kind of glossed. We don't know what people are thinking, right? I guess
Mhm.
I'm just jumping to conclusions, but I don't know. Just it kind of boils my skin whenever you hear about stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean that's frustrating. I'm glad she ended up breaking it off. I think she did her part right.
Yeah.
I would get a restraining order, but you know, I especially during that time period, I understand why she didn't maybe. Um, I still would have though.
But the thing is, being an actress, if you're just an everyday person, right, you can't get a lot for it from that, right? But
Uh-huh.
say she went to the police, she did go to the police, and it didn't work, right? Like they were like, okay, I'm not going to talk to you. We're not going to help you. Bummer. Go to the media. Honestly, they can make a lot of noise very quickly. Um, and then the police will be more than happy to go and help you. Uh, so I don't know. Just I mean, I guess that's a little manipulative. I just Yeah, it's just very annoying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why I brought it up because it needs to be talked about. Um, do you think with everything that's gone on and abuse being brought to light and talked about more? I do think people wouldn't would react differently nowadays just because this something like this would get out real quick and there would be a lot of backlash. Just because of that, I think not because people have her best interest at heart, but I think just because of social media and news and things spreading quickly, I think people would try and figure something out to cover their butts. You know what I mean?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I know, and
It-
and again, like you said, not even covering, for her best interests or a victim's best interest, but just for the I hate to say this word, but the clout or the popularity, it would come out really quickly.
right. So, yeah, that's a little frustrating. Of course, the whole situation is oddly enough. She broke up with him. What September? End of September, beginning of October, right? By the time she broke it off, she got a role in a miniseries about an alien invasion called V, just the letter V. Okay. On the evening of October 30th, 1982, maybe a month after she broke up with him, she was rehearsing scenes for V with an actor by the name of David Packer. And I have a lot of questions about David Packer and what you think about the situation. Okay. She was rehearsing scenes with him. Um, I'm not sure if it was at her house or at his house. Um, I believe it was at her house though, and I'll try to see if I can find that while we're talking. But Sweeney shows up uninvited, unexpectedly, and he demands that she speak with him. Okay. Now, she hesitates a little bit, but she decides to give him the benefit of the doubt. She steps outside, and David Packer stays inside. You know, Packer offered to leave, but she actually asked that he stay. Now, I don't think David Packer knew the situation, what was going on, the past abuse. Okay. So, um, he just understood that this was something serious, that he needed to talk to her relationship wise, whatever.
Something
They
private as well.
right. So he wanted to just leave, let her be. Now they immediately start arguing. Okay. Now, according to David Packer's account, he hears slapping sounds, two screams, and then a thud. Okay. After hearing that, immediately he calls the police, which I think it's the right move. That's the first thing you should do, in
Yep.
my opinion. Okay. Um, Now the police tell him that Dominique's home, so it is her home, okay, it's the house that she's renting, was out of their jurisdiction. Does that happen anymore?
I that's I don't know. I sure hope not. That's dumb. That's just
I
dumb.
don't.
Like
I think it's got to be when you call 911 that
it's the
it
closest person, right?
right, especially nowadays. But even then, that sounds like it's common sense to have that be the way things are, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe in his rush I don't know. I
Did
don't
he call the police department from his area?
I was gonna say maybe a local police department, and instead of this, like maybe it was state jurisdiction, and he called like the city police or something. I don't know.
That's weird. I would think you just call 911 and then it connects you to whoever's in the area, right?
That's what I would think.
Because, I mean, there's no cell phones. He used her landline, right? So,
That's what I would think. And it's the 80s. It's not the it's not the 1800s. Jeez, I don't know.
so he's frightened. This grown man. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna harp on him. Okay. I'm not. Not about his masculinity. Okay. Um,
Yeah.
but he calls a friend and tells him that if he's found dead, John Sweeney did it. Uh, okay. I'm not gonna say anything. I don't know if you have anything to say, Logan, but I'm not gonna say a word. Okay,
All right. All
about
right.
that.
All right. Well, I'll say it. I'll say it. I'm not afraid. Oh my goodness. What a coward. Anyways. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What a baby. Jeez. Man, I just
Toxic masculinity, right?
I I grew up with guns and knives and everything at like 10, so I don't know.
Sounds like a Hollywood pansy.
Right, exactly. Corner store cowboy if I ever heard one. No, I mean, I for somebody who didn't grow up like I did, and not to say that's the wrong way or the right way or anything like that. Um, no, I totally understand because you don't know what somebody else is capable of, right? And you know enough about yourself that you're not able to do something. I think that was honestly kind of a smart move for not being confident in yourself. He was being very cautious, still cowardly, but being cautious. Um, it
Right.
was obviously smart not to just run out and be like, "What are you doing?" Um, because again, he could have a knife or a gun or whatever. But I'm sorry if you heard a horn. My neighborhood is very odd. But anyways, um, just random noises. Um, but yeah, I mean that's I don't know, 50-50. I'm there.
Yeah, if you look at it different perspectives, you can kind of understand. I'll tell you what I would have done, but after I've finished with this story. So he leaves the house through the back door.
Oh my goodness.
Well, wait. He finds Sweeney near the driveway, kneeling over Dominique.
Oh, okay.
Spotting Packer, Sweeney tells him to call the police. When the police arrive, now that's what I don't understand. He tells him to call the police. He does it and they arrive. What did he do differently this time? It doesn't specify. But
So just real quick, maybe to save face, and this is just speculation, obviously, and no hate towards Mr. Packer, but maybe just to save face, he was saying that they said it was out of his jurisdiction, um, trying to put it on somebody
yeah,
else. Maybe he didn't call the police the first time.
but I think that if they that didn't happen and he made that up, I think that would be squashed or quashed or whatever the word is rather quickly by police asking him questions. You know what I mean?
True.
I mean, if he knew how to reach the police, especially the second time, why didn't he do that right after they told him they're out of your jurisdiction? Here's who you need to call. Why didn't he do that instead of calling the friend?
Mm,
That's where I think he messed up there. Among other things that he did, I think that was a big one.
yeah.
Is he should have gotten to the right police department right away. Instead, he calls a friend and tells him who did it. Um, I can see the thinking there, though, because there are, especially at this time, a lot more unsolved murders. So I can see him not knowing the situation. I do think they would have rather easily found him if he did kill both of them and left. I think they would have easily figured out who did it. But I can see his thinking there. He wanted to make sure if something did happen, at least they know who it was, right? But he could have said that to the police if he called them, right?
Yeah. 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 Well, and that's the thing though too is even back then, say a jurisdiction isn't in their area, like you said, I it must have been the police's fault for saying, "Oh, this isn't our jurisdiction." Sounds like you're having an emergency. Bummer. Bye. Like I don't know any police that would actually do that. That just doesn't make sense. It would seem to me like a police department, like you said, would say, "This is the wrong number. Call this number," or we'll call the nearest police department. It'll probably be longer than what it should be. Something
Mm-hmm.
along those lines. I just can't believe that a police department, any police department worth their salt, would call and say, or would answer a phone and say, "We can't help you. Bye." You know that just that just sounds wrong.
I mean, maybe they said, we're out of your jurisdictions, but, and then they're about to talk, and he just hangs up and calls his friend
I don't
after
know.
he hears those words. I don't know.
That just doesn't put this guy in the right light for me. I don't know. It just
Yeah.
sounds
Well,
it sounds like he was very afraid, not thinking straight, and just trying to save a little bit of face. Maybe I don't
yeah.
know.
You're not the only one who views him that way, so trust me. Now, spotting Packer, because Packer comes out, and Sweeney tells him to call the police. The police arrive. Sweeney puts his hands in the air and tells him that he killed his girlfriend and that he tried to kill himself with pills.
Hmm.
So he's hysterical. He kind of wakes up from that, snaps out of it, I should say, according to him, and realized what he did. And then that's what he tells police. I do not think that he actually did try to kill himself, by the way. Um, that's usually what people do to try and gain sympathy, is they say something like that. Um, but I don't think he had any pills with him. Um, Dominique is rushed to Cedar Sinai Hospital. Now, real quick, Cedar Sinai Hospital is the hospital for celebrity deaths. It's where Rebecca Schaefer was taken after she was shot. It's where a lot of people, famous people, singers, celebrities, especially actors and actresses and directors, have been taken, um, whether they died or not. That's Hollywood's number one famous hospital. Okay, just so you know. So if you work at a hospital and you want to meet celebrities, especially if their time's coming out soon, hint hint, that's the one. Okay.
Well,
Um,
that little piece of information, thanks.
so she's placed on life support and after her heart stops. Okay. Now her father Dominic mentions that he recalls seeing his daughter in the hospital after doctors screwed a bolt into her skull to relieve pressure on her brain caused by the strangulation. Um, and her long, beautiful hair, this is according to Dominic, the same hair that Sweeney had grabbed and pulled chunks or clumps out of, had been shaved off for the procedure. He says her eyes were open and grotesquely enlarged from the assault. Tubes were everywhere, and he could still see the hand marks from John Sweeney on her purple and bruised neck. That's got to be traumatic for her dad. Now, according to her dad, and I mean, I believe him, Dominique, never disclosed to them the what kind of person John Sweeney was. So they had no idea that he was abusive. So this was just a huge shock to them. Well,
Well,
I take it back. Her mom knew, her dad didn't. Okay, because they were divorced.
yeah, and maybe she didn't tell her dad because she knew that he was gonna get involved somehow. That that sounds like that was that kind of situation where she's like, "Look, I could take care of it myself. I don't really need him to be able to do it for me. I'm grown up. I could do it." And it just got out of hand. Um, because yeah, any at least any father of any little girl that have known will do pretty much anything for their daughter.
Rightly so, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um. So yeah, yeah, and I can understand that. But yeah, it's just sad. So she ended up in a coma for the next 5 days, but she never regained consciousness. So a family had to make a decision. They had to pull the plug. Um, so she ended up dying November 4th, 1982, 19 days before her 23rd birthday. Okay. Her kidneys were given to two patients at Cedar Sinai awaiting transplant, and her heart was sent to a hospital in San Francisco. Now, the trial. This is another big one, okay? Now, originally he was charged for attempted murder, but once she died, John Sweeney was charged with first degree murder, of course. Of course, he pled not guilty. Now, if I so just so happened to accidentally kill my wife, right? Or in this way, first, and I'm not saying, of course, that I would do that, but let's just say hypothetically, I would absolutely plead guilty for everyone else that has to be involved in this for their sake. Because when you plead not guilty, now there's a whole case and a whole trial. He's pleading not guilty, obviously, of course, because his lawyers told him not to, partly. But it's really all on it's his decision. So he's defending himself. I get that, but at the same time, dude, you have to own up to your mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he told the police, "I just killed my girlfriend." I mean, you know what I mean? Like he, I the I'm not gonna get into the laws and stuff of American law and stuff because I'm not one to speak on it, but there's just some things that are just dumb. Like whenever if and I know everything has to go over by evidence because the police could say, "Oh, we heard him say this," and it never really be said.
Right.
But gee, it just I don't know, frustrating in a situation like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's that. Nope, that's not it. So he pleads not guilty. He's also charged with assault with intent to do great bodily harm. He denies assaulting Dominique, which is like, okay. He says that he was just trying to prevent her from leaving their home, which I guess strangling someone is just normal way to prevent someone from leaving, right? It's very
No,
loving to do.
to prevent the person doing the strangling from leaving. So I'm stopping you from leaving because you're strangling me. I mean, that makes perfect sense. You know what I
No,
mean?
no. He says that he was trying to stop her from leaving.
Oh, I got you. I got you. Okay, yeah, no, that still doesn't make sense. Yeah, you want to leave? Let me strangle you. Now you're dead. Now you can't leave.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what happened. I mean, mission accomplished, buddy. Now, the trial began August of 1983. Okay. Now, the judge was Burton S. Katz. Now, he was the district attorney. The judge was previously the district attorney that successfully prosecuted Charles Manson, Bruce Davis, and Steve Grogan in 1971 for the 1969 murders of musician Gary Hinman and ranch hand Donald Shea. So that just adds insult to injury, of course, for the Dunne family because um, of all of that history. Now, the prosecution called Sweeney's former girlfriend, Lillian Pierce, just to understand or what kind of history Sweeney had when it came to his violent behavior. Okay. She dated Sweeney before he dated Dominique. Okay. So they dated from 1977 to 1980. During the course of their relationship, according to her, she says she was assaulted by him on 10 occasions and was hospitalized twice for injuries from his assaults. One hospitalization lasted 4 days, another was 6 days. So one assault, she suffered a perforated eardrum and a collapsed lung. She also sustained a broken nose from a different assault. She mentioned he would foam at the mouth when he lost control. He would smash furniture and pictures, and he even threw rocks at her when she tried to leave him. Interesting. Interesting. Is she making that up too? Like, what does he have to say to all of this? My question is, will he own up to his mistakes? Will he admit that he is a serious problem in that he is a terrible human being, a terrible individual because of this problem he has? It really this thing is what will sum up what kind of person he is, unfortunately, right? You say, you can't judge someone based on, maybe a bad quality here or there. But my take is there's an exception when it's things like this, right? Where it's this severe. Does that make sense? Mm.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You just this. I don't know this whole thing. It seems to me too like this Lillian. She was a little bit. Maybe why she was able to leave and not get killed was she wouldn't see him anymore. You know what I mean? Like I think that's where Miss uh, Dominique, you know, failed here or not failed. I shouldn't say that. Doesn't mean what she in retrospect, is 2020, but she seemed like she stood up to him a little bit more. Wouldn't deal with his trash, with his garbage, when he would dish it out. Um, but two, I mean, hey, if somebody has an FBI, an FBI file, I'm not gonna date them. I don't know if that's for everybody else too, but you know what I mean. Like, geez, that's
Sometimes you have to be safe than sorry. Some people will harp on you on that, like, people make mistakes, yada yada, right? But to each their own, right? You have to make your own decisions, and if that's a requirement, I don't think that's an unreasonable one.
yeah, yeah, crazy.
For reasons like this.
Yep.
Um, Now, Sweeney's attorney, Michael Adelson, and I cannot fathom being an attorney just because you have to represent people like this and do some shady stuff just to win your case. I mean, you have to be a horrible person sometimes just to win your cases and make money, right? He went after Lillian Pierce, the ex-girlfriend, as if she were the guilty party. He accused her of being drunk, an addict, and suggesting that she brought the violence upon herself, which is very 1980s. Like, he said that she deserved what she got. Um, and then he tried to damage Dominique's character as well, which is just downright dirty. I mean, she's dead. She can't even defend herself.
Yeah. That's like you said. What a thing to do. That's why in movies and TV shows they're always like, man, lawyers are like a mosquito. You know what I mean? Ay.
So, guess what? So there's something an incident that happened during this whole court case. Okay. So while she's speaking, Pierce, Sweeney becomes enraged and jumps to his feet and toward the door leading to the judge's chambers. So this guy's got some serious anger. Like, this is one of the worst cases of anger management I have ever seen. Um, and if you want to look at the source, he's to blame, obviously, but his dad and the abuse that he witnessed made that seem normal to him. He didn't work on that quality, not aware enough again. He ended up being restrained by two bailiffs, four armed guards, and ended up starting to cry when he was returned to his chair and handcuffed. Um, Now this part is what really just sets me off. Okay, so he apologizes to the judge, Judge Katz. And this is what Katz says: under all the circumstances, Katz knowing exactly what has happened, what has transpired, he has all of the information he needs. And Judge Katz says not only accepts his apology, but he says, "We know what strain you are under, Mr. Sweeney."
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That judge. Oh my goodness. How? I don't. I don't. Jeez.
I don't get. I don't get. Do they have some kind of law where if the judge is obviously being partial to one side or the other, it's tough because.
You can't choose one side or the other. But he is choosing one side. That's just.
But why? Because he's a guy.
I have no idea. That just don't make sense.
But this isn't the only incident. So Katz kind of had like it was kind of apparent they had little sympathy for the victim and her family, and he even continuously mispronounced Dominique's name. And he showed empathy towards the man who killed her. That's kind of just like a cultural problem there,
That doesn't
where
even sound like he's trying his best to be equal to both sides. That just sounds like he's like, I just don't care about. I'm here for the defense. Like I don't care what the lawyers have to say or the prosecution. It's all about the defense. Like it doesn't sound like he's trying to. Jeez.
so a reporter wrote about this incident because a reporter for the local paper was there in attendance. Now, the lawyer Adelson, the defense lawyer, um, at his bequest, Katz admonished this reporter for exaggerating the incident, which that's not really an exaggeration. He's just quoting him, honestly. Um, Maybe he's talking about the exaggerated incident from Sweeney, but you can't, what you said is what you said. I mean, that's, hey, okay, this guy is obviously siding. When a judge says that, it's like, okay, whose side are you on, judge? You know, why are you siding with Mr. Sweeney, this murderer?
Well, and the thing too is unless the client just straight up lies to the attorney, this guy knows he's dealing with a murderer. Like, he knows that this guy did it. He knows what had happened, and he's okay going this far, not only to win but to let a murderer out on the street. Like,
Hmm.
I don't get how people are okay with that kind of thing. Like,
I don't know. It's hard to explain, and I can't explain it. I really don't have words. I'm trying to find words. I just can't.
well, it's like this. I mean, it's like saying, murder is illegal, but only if, you know you're dumb enough to get caught. Like, that's a terrible thing. And that's basically what is happening here, is that they're being smart enough not to get caught, and that's just straight stupid.
Yeah, it sounds. You know how you mentioned that you feel like a lot of sports are rigged. It almost feels like this is already gonna be this is rigged.
Mhm.
Eh, That's what it feels like. Okay. Now, Adelson, the defense lawyer, nasty, dirty guy, man. He seemed to have some kind of bone to pick with the Dunn family. They're just victims. They didn't do anything wrong. Her mom, Lenny, she suffered from multiple sclerosis, so she was in a wheelchair throughout this whole courtroom. I mean, she's in a wheelchair. She's bound to a wheelchair. He felt like her presence in the courtroom would elicit sympathy from the jury, so he
What?
wanted her banned from the courtroom.
What? That's continue. I'm not gonna get into it.
Now, Katz, he didn't cross that line. He didn't agree with that, so he denied that request. Adelson did request and was granted by Judge Katz in order that any emotional outburst by the Dunn family, including crying, eye rolling, or any sort of exclamation, would result in them being ejected from the courtroom without warning.
And so they just had to sit there and be statues. Really?
No emotion. In fact, and obviously you're going to expect emotion, he tried to have Dominique's brother removed one day because he had tears in his eyes.
How can you go to bed at night, like, feeling happy with yourself, being content? Like, what kind of person are you? Like, jeez. That I'm not the type of person to punch somebody, but geez, that sounds like somebody that needs to get hit in the face.
So the brothers, when he or they changed seats while Sweeney was testifying so that they could be in his line of sight, which I understand. If someone murdered my sibling, I'd want them to make eye contact with me. I want you to see me and see how it affects people, right? And people, loved ones. Adelson tried to get the brothers tossed from the courtroom because of that. He also requested that Katz rule Pierce's, the ex girlfriend's testimony, inadmissible as it was prejudicial. So Katz granted that request. So everything that the ex girlfriend said about his history of abuse could not be considered in the final decision. It was thrown out.
What?
So what that means is the actual jury never gets to hear her testimony because this was before a jury. She testified with a jury not present. So the jury never got to hear his history. Katz also refused to allow Dominique's mother, Lenny, and Dominique's friends to testify about the abuse Dominique suffered at Sweeney's hands.
So they weren't allowed to present any evidence? Like, you can't say anything.
It's
Okay, so
almost like the judge and the lawyer or the attorney were in cahoots. They're working together.
did the prosecution have nothing to say, honestly? Like, were they just twiddling their thumbs this whole time and letting themselves get walked all over, or were they in it
I,
too?
I
You know what
don't
I mean?
know. I don't know that side right now. I really don't. So on August 29th, Adelson moved that Katz rule that there was insufficient evidence to try Sweeney on the charge of first degree murder because there was no evidence of predetermination or deliberation. Okay. So because there's no evidence of that, he cannot be charged with first degree murder. Um, Now, this is really the fault of the prosecuting attorney. I really do believe he should have charged him with second degree murder because first degree murder does mean that you murdered someone with predetermination, which I really don't believe he planned necessarily on murdering her.
Mhm.
Although there was very high risk, obviously, and he still murdered her. It definitely was not manslaughter, absolutely not. But I do believe he should have been charged with second degree murder. Okay, because I've seen how these things go, and this is one of those where. Anyways, of course, Judge Katz, who's best buddies with Adelson, granted the motion, so first degree murder was off the table. Okay. Now the jury could only deliberate on manslaughter or second degree. Um, but see, first degree murder should always be on the table for me. I do believe it should have been on the table. That was the mistake of the judge. Okay.
Among
So,
others. But
all
yeah.
right. So, no first degree murder possibility. That's already been thrown out. No Lillian Pierce testimony. So, pretend that never happened. And the mother and Dominique's friends couldn't say a peep or a word about what happened. Jury didn't hear anything about his history. So, if I was the jury, I would, in my mind, it's almost like this is a one-time thing. Okay, which will definitely affect not me, but other jury members, possibly. Right?
Mhm.
Everyone thinks differently. Um, Sweeney ended up getting to take the stand in his own defense, and he claimed that he and Dominique had reconciled already, which is not true, by the way. He stated that the two planned on moving back in together and had discussed getting married and having children. They did not plan on moving in together, obviously. He's lying again. According to Sweeney, Dominique had suddenly changed her mind and told him that she had lied to him about reconciling and had intentionally led him on. I think that's all in his head. Um, I think he's twisting something that she said. So he said that he just exploded and lunged toward her, but he claimed he had no recollection of actually attacking her until he was on top of her with his hands around her neck and she was not breathing. Whatever, dude. That's ridiculous. How do you not remember choking her? I bet you remember it every night that you have to go to sleep. I hope you do. He stated that he attempted to revive her by walking her around, but she fell. Okay. Um, an attempt at CPR was made, which he said made Dominique vomit, causing him to vomit. At that point, he ran into the house, consumed 2 bottles of pills, in an attempt to kill himself. I don't know how true that is. Like I said, I don't know what pills he took, what his thought process was. It could have been he took pills that were not necessarily harmful, just to say that he took pills. I don't know. I don't know, but he obviously didn't come close to even killing himself or ending up in the hospital. It says he laid in the driveway next to Dominique after pulling her tongue out of her throat, something he said he had done for his epileptic father. So the lawyer, Adelson, claimed that these actions proved that Sweeney did not act with malice and had in fact acted in the heat of passion, and that it was provoked by Dominique. If you were
Yeah.
fam- if you were a family member of Dominique, how would you feel about all of this? All of this.
Mm. Words would not describe how I'd feel. that would be that would be crushing. That would be, man. I would want that. I would want it moved out of that court. That would be. I would try to find some legal loophole to be able to get it out of that court because that is obviously a biased court.
All right. So now you want to hear defense? What some of the things the defense did?
Sure, sure.
Okay. So they disputed that the couple had reconciled. And Sweeney had gone to her home on October 30th in an attempt to get her to change her mind because she told him that it was a permanent breakup, which is definitely sounds more. I'm sorry, but that's. I'm not trying to be biased here, but come on, that's going to be how that sounds more realistic to me, right?
Yep.
Uh, whereas his version is more delusional. The police disputed Sweeney's versions of events because there was absolutely no evidence that he had consumed any pills. So this is from the police,
Yep.
and they found him to be calm and collected. The first officer on the scene remembers Sweeney telling him, "Man, I blew it. I killed her. I didn't think I choked her that hard, but I didn't know. I just kept on choking her. I just lost my temper and blew it again." This is not just blowing it, dude. Like, this is not those other times where you abused her. You literally took someone's life. Okay. Um, the medical examiner testified that Dominique had been strangled for between 4 and 6 minutes, which was more than enough time for Sweeney to regain himself and his control, and also plenty of time for him to look into her eyes as he killed her. Right?
Yep.
Yet, despite this, Katz had determined there was no sufficient evidence to try John Sweeney for first-degree murder. The jury deliberated for 8 days. They returned with a verdict on September 21st, 1983. John Sweeney was acquitted of second-degree murder and found guilty of voluntary manslaughter, which is a huge loss for the Dunne family. Huge loss. It doesn't matter that he was convicted of that. The fact that he was not convicted of any murder is that's a loss in my eyes. Adelson was gleeful at that verdict. And immediately he began calling for Sweeney to get probation, which is, I don't know how to explain that. Katz did not grant that, but I mean the damage is done. That's it.
Which, I mean, the thing is, okay, for somebody who has murdered somebody or killed somebody, they really regret it. They want to change. They've spent time in jail. A probation, I'm down for people who really want to come back to society and have really, changed their ways. But this guy hadn't even done time yet. His only regret was that he didn't have a punching bag anymore. I mean, you know what I mean? It's jeez.
So John Sweeney was sentenced on November 7th, 1983. I want you to guess how long he was sentenced for. Do you know already?
No, I don't know.
All right, I want you to guess then.
5 years.
Yeah, he was sentenced to 6 years,
Oh,
plus an additional 6 months for the misdemeanor assault charge he was also found guilty of. Now, there was a lot of backlash from media, from people, and obviously the Judge Katz heard it, and he didn't want his reputation stained. Well, it's too late, buddy. So he backpedals when he gives the sentencing and says that this is a case pure and simple of murder with malice.
oh yeah, yeah. Let me take away all the evidence for it
Right.
and make fun of you for not knowing what the evidence was. What kind? That again sounds like a guy that needed to be hit in the face. Jeez.
By the way, so the jury foreman said that statement was really just a cheap shot. And he mentioned that if the jury had heard all the evidence, this is the jury foreman, so one of the jury members, evidence that Katz himself would not permit to be heard, that they would have convicted Sweeney of murder. He also said that the foreman later said that the judge's instructions to the jury were incomprehensible. 4 times while deliberating, the jury asked for clarification on the instructions, and the judge would only say the answers to their questions were in the instructions.
That sounds like the judge wasn't even trying to do his job.
By the way, just a little not so fun fact. 5 minutes before handing down his sentence to Sweeney, Katz sentenced a man who had committed a non-violent robbery at a flower shop to 5 years.
What? A guy robbed some flowers and he gets the same sentence as a guy.
He robbed money from a flower shop, but
Oh.
did not use any weapons or anything. It was non-violent. He basically snuck in, stole the money, and left.
So a burglar
Right.
versus a murderer got pretty much the same sentence. Jeez.
So John Sweeney served a total of 3 years out of his 6-year sentence.
Oh, wow. Go figure.
3 months later, he's hired as head chef at the upscale The Chronicle 3 months after he's released. Upon finding out where he was working, Dominique's brother Griffin and her mother handed out flyers at the restaurant saying, "The food you will eat tonight was cooked by the hands that killed Dominique Dunne."
What stupid restaurant would be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's hire this guy." Like how that's just dumb from a just a business perspective, you know what I mean? No matter how brilliant somebody is, even if they're willing to work cheap, like it's gonna go downhill quick.
So he moved out of LA. In the mid 90s, Dominic Dunne, the father, was contacted by a Florida doctor who, after reading an article about his daughter's murder, was worried that his own daughter was engaged to Dominique's killer. His name was John Sweeney. He was a chef, and it turned out that it was the same John Sweeney. So her brother, Griffin Dunne, contacted the woman to try and convince her to call off her engagement and get away from Sweeney. Sweeney felt like this was the last straw, so he changed his name. He accused them of harassment and changed his name to John Mara. So he had he ended up relocating for a little bit to the Pacific Northwest before returning to California. Dominique Dunne had hired private investigator Anthony Pelicano to have Sweeney/Mara followed for a time. After he learned that he had relocated to the Pacific Northwest, he decided he wasn't going to waste the rest of his life on energies on doing this. He felt like there wasn't really a point to it. Wasn't going to accomplish anything. So he stopped following him and harassing him.
That's I mean, it sounds like at least that John Sweeney had changed a little bit. You know, he was able to get married. I don't know.
So, Burton S. Katz was voted the fourth worst judge to sit on the bench in Los Angeles. Because of that, he transferred to juvenile court.
Fourth worst? There's worse than him? Honestly? What is going on over there? What was going on in the 80s? What in the world?
So he wrote a book on the problems with the justice system. It should have been about
Oh
him.
my gosh, that's an autobiography. That's what that is. Oh.
And he became a commentator and writer for MSNBC and Time Warner. The two prosecutors and two defense attorneys continued on with their legal careers. Detective Harold Johnson, the man who had driven to her mom's house to notify her that her daughter was at Cedar Sinai and near death, and who tracked down Sweeney's former girlfriend, Lillian Pierce. He was a veteran law enforcement officer for over 25 years. He told Dominique Dunne, her father, that he had fervently believed in the justice system his entire career until Dominique's case.
Yeah, I gotta agree with him. I mean, there's just, jeez, because you go to the police, you go to a judge because you think this is where justice is supposed to be, but that's what happens when imperfect people run something that's supposed to be good, done perfectly. Ay,
Yeah. Well, sad. Dominic Dunne. So, do you know anything about the O.J. Simpson case?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay. So obviously, O.J. Simpson got off away with murder. He murdered Nicole Simpson Brown, and he also murdered her friend. But his name is Ron Goldman. Now, Ron Goldman wasn't famous. He wasn't popular. He was a young guy. He was just a friend who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. A friend of Nicole Brown Simpson. So a lot of the attention was put on Nicole Brown Simpson's family, on her relationship with O.J. Simpson, but there was not a lot of attention given to the other victim, Ron Goldman, who ended up dying too. People tend sometimes forget, that there was a second victim there. So during the trial, Dominic Dunne was there alongside the Goldmans the entire time. And you can imagine him having flashbacks when O.J. Simpson gets off for those murders, even though it's obvious that he did commit them. Uh, he just went through it all over again, being with the Goldmans, being by their side. It's just a sad story. He remained an investigative journalist until he passed away on August 26, 2009, from bladder cancer. He lived a long life. He was 83. Now, the Goldmans appreciated Dominic Dunne because he knew what it felt like to watch a loved one's killer walk out of the courtroom a free man. So he was there for them. Um, Now, John Sweeney should still be in prison to this day.
I don't know. Maybe he does feel regret, but there's not any evidence. There's not anything
Right,
he's
that's the
done.
problem.
Yeah. So,
It's like at this point, would it really make a difference? I mean, I guess not. I don't know. It's kind of too late, right? Too little, too late.
jeez, what a terrible case. That's a rough one. But something I didn't acknowledge too was Dominique. I'm sorry. Um, she was only 5'1", so she was pretty small. And him being built, and it taking six people, like, did anybody really think that? You know what I mean? Like that wasn't. It was he killed her. He didn't plan it. I don't think. I agree with you. I don't think he planned it. He left there saying I'm going to kill her, but at that moment, that was his plan was to kill her. Like he could have snapped out of it a long time ago. It was whenever he realized, like you said, for selfish reasons. Oh crap! I need to, you know, not do this. Okay. But fourth worst judge. That blows my mind. Like how? Jeez. And then it has the gall to write about how the system is broken. Yeah, people like you are the reason why. Sometimes I really wish that our podcast was like a way bigger, just so that people who were involved can hear what we have to say. You know what I mean?
Really tough story. Another young person lost way too soon, unnecessarily. And this time she did what she could, really. Um,
Yeah.
Considering she did a lot more than a lot of other people, like Judith Barcy's mom. She did more than she did, right? But this time it wasn't necessarily her loved ones that failed her. It was the people who were supposed to protect you even when your loved ones don't, right? The last resort, the justice system. She was failed by them. because the police didn't come in time, right? They didn't. I don't know all the background, but it seems like nothing was done about John Sweeney at all ever legally. Um,
Well, and real quick, I gotta disagree with you. I think the family did fail her because the mom didn't call the police or didn't. I just knowing for me, if I knew somebody who was dealing with abuse, I'd be like, okay, you got to get the police here right now. You got to get them there now. I'm showing up. I'm gonna be there,
mhm,
but the police are gonna should be there too. Get the police there. Why are you on the phone with me? You know what I mean? Like this needs to be taken care of. Because cases like this, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't as widespread. Maybe people didn't really realize that this could happen to them. And
mhm.
so, just as a PA, if you're suffering from abuse, talk to somebody you trust. Talk to a police officer. You don't even have to call the police. Just getting it, legal advice, finding out how you could get out of that situation. Because nobody, doesn't matter who you are, what you've done. Even if you are a bad person, you don't. Everybody is human, and you don't deserve abuse. You know, you need to be tried for your crimes, but abuse is entirely different. Even in as far as our jails, cruel and unusual punishment is illegal as well. It's all fair. Um, Obviously, you're not going to be fed lobster in prison, but I mean, geez, this whole situation is a rough one.
Yeah, it's tough. I can see what you're saying. I guess I'm thinking more of like her brother and her dad. They just didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah,
I think they would have done more.
yeah, and being a bigger brother to two younger sisters, I'll tell you right now, if I found out anything about that,
Yeah.
yeah, the police would definitely be called one way or another.
They'd be
Yeah,
called on you.
exactly. All right, Chihuahua.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's tough. Another sad episode. But we don't want to talk about John Sweeney. We don't want to talk about Judge Katz or stupid lawyer Adelson. Those guys aren't worth a dime. Really, it's the person who was the victim who lost her life, Dominique Dunne. Her life is the one that should be celebrated.
Mhm.
Good thing we have her movies and shows to remember her by. These incidences have happened quite a lot. Trust me. To much less popular, famous people. I get that, right? Her case isn't unique, unfortunately, but because she is famous and because this is more well known, hopefully it sheds light on all of the other incidences, and we all learn from it and become better. And I think that's always the point, right? Is that we make sure the mistakes that people make are not repeated. The mistakes that the justice system makes are never repeated. And I hope that people learn from this.
Well, that's the hope. But no, I suppose it is getting near to my bedtime, Braden.
Well, yeah,
Last
I'm pretty tired too.
Yeah. Long day, long week, long year. And hopefully there won't be an alien invasion in the coming weeks.
I hope there is sometimes. But anyways, I will bid adieu. In case you're listening in a specific time zone or a specific time of day, I will acknowledge every single one of you by saying, I really hope you have a good morning, a good afternoon, a good evening, and a great night.
I don't want a friend. I want my life into waiting to get there. waiting for you. I'm not fired all night. When I'm around, so dancing in the dark. Don't follow me, you'll end up in my arms. You don't made up your mind. I don't need no more signs. Can you? Can you? Give me reasons we should be complete. You should be with him, I can't compete. You looked at me like I was someone else. Oh well, can't you see? I don't wanna slow dance in